Good evening, and welcome to the Transportation and Parking Commission meeting of Monday, February 25th. Before we start, I want to welcome our new commissioner, Mr. William Wiseman.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
Thank you. And with that, let's do roll call. Item 1.
Item 1, regular business agenda. Item 1A, roll call. Commissioner Merabian. Commissioner Sulayan. Commissioner Welch.
Present.
Commissioner Weissman.
Here.
Chairperson Sahakian.
Here. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 1B, flag salute. Chairperson Sahakian.
Thank you. Please rise. Art and recite with me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice.
Thank you. We have Commissioner Sulayan in the house. I'll give the commissioner a minute. Okay, item number 2.
Item 2, posting of agenda. The agenda for the Monday, February 25th, 2008 regular meeting of the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission was posted by Thursday, February 21st, 2008, before 5:30 p.m. on the bulletin board outside of City Hall.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 3, approval of minutes. Item 3A, January 28th, 2008 regular meeting approval of minutes.
Commissioners,
No comments.
comments? Will be any comments? Do we have a,
I move that we accept the minutes.
thank you. Second? Changes to it?
Yeah, I forgot I had some notes, but can we come back? Can we come back on this, or?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner, members of the Commission, the Chair can move this item to a later point in the agenda.
Would you like us to review it at the following commission meeting?
No, just at the end.
Out of order?
Out of
Okay.
order.
Okay, we'll come back to it then. Let's move on to the next item.
Item 4, oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. The Commission may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision.
Thank you, and I'm officially going to open oral communications at this time, and the first speaker would be Mr. Barry Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission staff, and welcome to Mr. Weissman.
Thank you.
In addition to, there are 3 issues that I want to speak. One was that it was my understanding from the meeting last month that the issue of on Candlestick Lane, Linda Vista, would be coming back either at a special meeting or at this one, but apparently it's being moved for, who knows, another month or so. That's one issue. Number 2 issue has to do with the Beeline Route 13, that it was my understanding that it was going to be coming back to the City Council with ridership and revenue information after the end of December. And at this point, we still haven't seen it, and yet it is being prepared to go out on bid. Oh, we're not getting it. Okay. I'm sorry, my public. But the issue is that I think that this commission should be directing its staff to make sure that that information is given to the council on a timely basis, and also as the Beeline bid is, the RFP is out. It came out on Friday, and it's also evident from some of the remarks of city staff that the public and the press are not welcome to attend the pre-proposal meeting to see the condition of the Beeline buses. And that's something that we really feel that it is an affront to transparency, and that it's within the jurisdiction of this commission to have staff look into this, because the public is being kept away from this particular issue of seeing how the bidding process will take place. And you, because you don't sit on the council, last year when the B-line was extended for 15 months at about, I think it was $10 million, the council was told that they had to ratify this agreement even though it had already taken place through staff. So I think we have some issues there where the council was not being kept in charge of what their own destiny was, and that destiny was created by staff. We need more transparency in issues that this commission is involved with. Thank you. I'm Barry Allen for Van Guardians, our community watchdog.
Thank you. I thought you said 3 items, and we heard
Was that
2.
3?
Yeah, you said 3.
Linda Vista,
Okay.
the Beeline Route
Beeline.
13, and the Beeline RFP keeping people out of the loop.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bagdanian, you want to not directly respond to the speaker, but the Linda Vista Drive, I am aware of it. We're doing studies. We did one count, and we're doing another count. So, and that takes time. On the Beeline issue, as far as the pre-proposal meeting, can you just comment on that very briefly?
I have briefly heard about the issue Mr. Barry Allen has raised. That has been referred to City Attorney for his comment. Generally, when we issue an RFP, we have pre-proposal meeting, whether it's for a service contract for the B-line for parking facilities or it's a construction contract. Only the people that are proposing for those services are invited to attend those, or they're qualified individual firms that are on our list of firms, and we also advertise for those firms. So apparently there has been a request made that the public also be present at the proposal meeting, which is technically we're allowing the bidders, proposers to come in, inspect the buses, because they have to bid on the maintenance of those buses, propose on the maintenance of the buses. So they come in and look at the buses, condition of the buses on a Sunday, and then that will allow them to prepare their estimate as part of their proposal. So that is being addressed by city attorneys as a request that was made, and depending on what the city attorney determines, if he determines that we allow the public also attend that proposal meeting, then they're welcome. If its determination is not to, then they cannot attend the meeting. It is not what every transit agency or any city does. When you're doing proposal, and these are the qualified firms who are coming to propose for that particular
And this is
service.
prior to the bidding process?
This is
and
prior.
it's
No
completely-
bids are being made. They're just inspecting the buses, the condition of the buses, so that then, once all the other documentation is provided, they can propose for a cost. There's a due date that they will have to propose by that time.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker in oral communications, Mr. Herbert Molano.
Good evening. My name is Herbert Milano, commissioners and city staff. I have an area of a lot of concern, I think, and I think that perhaps it should be of concern to you as well. During the last, or the next to the last Planning Commission meeting, where the Planning Commission was going through the approval of a development agreement for a fairly large residential condominium high-rise, I asked why it was that that particular EIR, the Environmental Impact Report, was not presented to this group for evaluation. Now, this is a fairly large, one of the largest condominium projects here in Glendale that has a significant number of those parking that is made available to the tenants that is tandem, and where there is going to be an impact on Duran and Brand, which is already has a level of service of an E. And so the statement by someone representing the Planning Commission said that, she said that, you know, they felt it was not necessary for you to look at it. Well, the same situation happened with another major development, which was City Center 2. The environmental impact report was done. Over 90% of the parking is tandem. They also chose, we made a decision that you didn't need to see that. But it is my opinion that you are our face, the face of the public with regard to policy. So I wonder, how is it possible that a city staff could actually make their own determination that you don't need to see it? So who in the world is going to evaluate it? So it is of a big concern, because even though environmental impact reports have been around for a long time, well over 40 years, so you imagine that even in Los Angeles, especially in the west of L.A., as more and more buildings come up, environmental impact reports were prepared, which declared the situation of the traffic. But look what it is right now. It's a significant and major problem for the city of L.A. And so my question to you is, do you want the same thing to happen here in Glendale? If you don't take a look at that EIR, then who does? Who gets to evaluate it and give it a different judgment? I'm also concerned about the manner in which we continually use to evaluate intersections, which is the level of service. We evaluate the intersections, and it's still an arcane method. It's still a judgmental method, because people don't remember that it is 3 cycles or 4 cycles, whatever it is. And I think that we need, in addition to the LOS, a measurement that tells us what the average speed is, especially among our major streets during peak times, and all the connector streets. Look what is going to happen already, what is happening on Wilson, especially eastbound from Brent, towards Glendale Avenue. That is incredibly congested, and you only have a single lane. So my suggestion is that as that gets more and more impacted, traffic is moving to California, and traffic is moving to Lexington, and then to Durant, and all that traffic is getting excessively jammed up. If you don't have information with the average speed, we don't have a good valuation, right, a good determination if it is getting progressively worse. And my suggestion is that we should have a complete map with every major connector with a peak time average speeds. This way, you can evaluate it 6 months later or 6 months after that, and the public will know, wait a second, we're going at 5 miles an hour a year ago, now we're going at 3 miles an hour, at 6 p.m. Because we need a different way of measuring and conveying information to the public in a way that makes sense. This LOS is not working as a communication tool for the public. And I think that we need to know, year by year, or maybe every 6 months, how the deterioration in traffic is occurring here in Glendale. Thank you very much for the extra time.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
No, I'm not going to allow any questions in oral communications. You can make
To staff.
comments. Well, to staff, absolutely, of course.
I'm just wondering, I know in the past we used to receive some ER reports on some of the projects in the city. They call the Broadways, the one building from the Broadway district. So how does it work? Some projects comes to us, and some projects won't even come to us, like Mr. Morano raised.
The determination made if the environmental impact report is done, and if it has significant impacts at the intersection, if there are significant impacts, then those are brought to the commission. That's been our practice in the past. However, before a project comes in, the redevelopment agency staff has brought the project to the commission, presented it, discussed the size of the project, some of the issues related, whether it has to do with parking or traffic generation. But I can't put my hand on the particular 2 projects Mr. Milano mentioned, but if the project doesn't have significant impacts, then it does not come to the commission. That's been the practice. However, the commission's request that all projects that have an environmental impact should come to the commission. We will always bring it to the commission, but that's been the practice. It doesn't have an environmental. For example, the Americana project, the environmental impact report was presented to the commission. When it was completed, the copy was furnished to all the commissioners for your comment and review. I believe we had, I'm trying to think of another, obviously the mobility plan and all the different components of the mobility plan, because it had traffic impacts or policy issues, was brought to the commission. But what I will do is I'll discuss it further with the planning director, redevelopment agency director, and report back to the commission at the next meeting.
Because I do know those have a tremendous impact, the 2 buildings that he just mentioned.
If there are if the traffic analysis is done and it does not have a significant impact by the thresholds that the city has set, and there is no mitigation measures accordingly to remedy those impacts, then those types of projects have not come to the Commission. That's how the determination has been made. I don't have the details of those two particular projects, but I will be happy to report back to the Commission as to their impacts and the status, because I do not review those environmental. My assistant does, and the Planning Department does it.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, it's common sense, any such large-scale, high-rise condominium complex, parking is going to become an issue with the current thresholds of what is allowed and respectfully using federal guidelines, state guidelines. In my opinion, sometimes they don't fit a certain city or demographics. It does have an impact with mobility when they're out of parking within the structure and they're parking on the streets, and now, you know, we have mobility issues. So my position has been, and I know Ruby's position has been, that we would like to see environmental impact reports. Let's get all of them, and then let's make the decision if we want to get involved, if there's no mobility impact. The Planning Commission, they can say there's no impact, but we might or we might not disagree with it, and it's up to us to look at the report and accordingly make that decision.
Mr. Chairman, I assure you I will pass that on to our, as I said, to the Planning Director and Redevelopment Agency Director, and we'll request that occurs, and we've done it in the past. There are some timing issues sometimes with some of these documents. However, I would agree that, yes, even if it's mitigated impacts, those should be part of the Commission review, and then Commission can decide whether you want to get further involved in any comments on the document or not.
Okay. Thank you so much. And last item for oral communications is Mr. Ivan Schneider.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Glad to be here. I have some questions and some comments that I'd like to bring up with you. I live on Broadview Drive, 2020. Perfect vision, Broadview Drive in Glendale, and the traffic on Broadview has went up anywhere from 5 to 10 times as many in the last 2 to 4 years. Sometimes I'm as much as 3 to 5 minutes getting out of my driveway. Is there an environmental impact report on the Broadview area, the street? Because when they changed the stoplight at Honolulu, Verdugo, and Montrose, the left turn light, they increased it 5 to 10 times as long. Now, instead of coming down that way, people go on down on Ocean View, come across on Broadview. So we wound up with about 10 times as many cars as we used to have. Then they're building that new building on the corner for the doctor's offices. There'll be another 30 to 60 cars will be coming out of there. So we've got down on the next corner, which is Clifton and Broadview, there's a blind street. It's a blind corner. What is the speed on a blind corner in Glendale? Can anybody answer? Anyway, I understood from taking my DMV test that it's 15 miles an hour on a blind corner. You can't see 100 feet in each direction. They come by there 30 and 40 miles an hour and better. When they finish that building, the impact of that will be putting more cars in the street, and on rush hour, they're backed up from that stoplight on Broadview and Verdugo as much as a block to 2 blocks sometimes. They're going to have to pull out of that structure right into that line of traffic. Well, I think that's going to be a major problem. I'd like to point it out to you. Okay, can I see at some time the environmental impact of that area?
Is Was there I'm not too familiar with the area, and there will be an EIR if there's a proposed development, major development in the area. Now, the doctor's office...
On the corner.
It could have one, but as far as the street by itself having an EIR, there's no such thing.
Okay.
So...
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
if I may suggest, Larry Tay, or one of our traffic engineers here, we can take down the gentleman's name, and it seems to me it's more of a traffic calming issue.
Yes.
In a residential area because of the volume and speed of traffic. We'll do our customary traffic calming measurements in terms of speed and volume, and we'll see what we can do to remedy his concerns.
I counted morning and evening traffic one day, or several days, and there was about 50 to 60 cars during those times. So that's a lot of cars going down a single-lane street.
Larry Tay can take down your name and phone number, and be happy to do some traffic counts and see what the volume of traffic is right now.
And I'd like to see about that blind corner, because there's been a lot of cars almost collided there.
We'll do that.
Thank you very much.
It is a common problem sometimes where a change happens within the vicinity at an intersection, or the installation of a new signal, for example, that people will change the pattern and they go through neighborhoods where they're shortcutting or they're getting to their destination much quicker. It's throughout the city, it's in other cities also, and what Mr. Bagdanian referred to is traffic calming, a method used to discourage that, is the installation of speed humps and other means. So
If there's a stop sign a block down from us, that would help. Then
if
they
it's
have-
warranted, I'm sure they'll look at it, so they'll be contacting you.
That's a blind corner.
Okay.
Four-way
Before you
stop.
leave, though, please make sure that we have your information.
Okay. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you, absolutely, thank you for coming. Okay, I don't have any more cards for oral communications, so I'm going to close oral communications, and let's move to the next item.
Item 5, action items. Item 5A, Director of Public Works regarding report on the proposed preferential parking district on the north and south side of the 1700 block of Sunview Drive, from Downing Avenue to the East Alley. 5A1, resolution approving the installation of a 2-hour Monday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., except by permit, parking restriction on the north and south side of the 1700 block of Sunview Drive, from Downing Avenue to the East Alley.
Thank you, and I do have speakers for this item. Mr. Bagdanian, would you like to go through the presentation, and then we'll take the speakers?
Mr. Chairman, this is a very simple matter in terms of a preferential parking request. We're trying to accommodate the residents that are shown on the 3500 and 3470. Between Downing Avenue and the alley to the east, we have 2-hour parking. Again, this area is close to the Ocean View. There's a lot of businesses along Ocean View. So because of the 2-hour parking, the residents cannot park on street in front of their homes. So they're requesting that between Downey and the alley, we convert the 8 parking spaces to 2-hour except by permit. The preferential permit parking ordinance allows that. So all we're doing is the businesses who are still, some of them will park on Sunview, still will be able to park for 2 hours, but it will give the residents the opportunity to park their vehicle at that location. Because of some of the red curve that we have, and they're in a corner, if they want to park their additional cars, they have to go onto Downing and park in front of somebody else. So we think it doesn't have a major impact in the area, and it's fair to allow the residents to park, turn this into a preferential parking. We're recommending that the Commission approve 2-hour except by permit preferential parking on the block between Downey and the alley, for your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we get the lights back on? Sorry about that, Christine. You might have to do it 3 times, 2 more times. I do have speakers for this item, and the first speaker is Jan Reedy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm the resident at 3470 Downing. So in the forward part of this house, it's all red curbed. So the reason I actually initiated this is because I have been ticketed dozens of times. And I do have to tell you, when I go down in front of my neighbor's house or the previous neighbor's house, you know, depending on who's parking and who's home, it's a long way to carry a couple gallons of milk for the boys all the way up and around the corner to the back of my house. I'm a flight attendant, and I'm carrying luggage, and it just makes so much more sense for me to be able to pull onto the street, get my luggage out, take it into the house. Because of the way the 2-hour parking is set up right now, if I'm at home and the meter maid comes by and tags one of my plates, and then I go to the market or, you know, go to the bank or anything else, if I come back, I get a ticket. I have my car and my son's car that's usually parked out, and then we have a car that's parked in the driveway. So sadly, you know, for the last, I don't know, 2 years or so, parking tickets is part of my monthly budget. So I would appreciate some help.
Thank you. Any questions, Commissioners? Okay, next speaker is Hattie Nally, and I hope I didn't butcher that a little bit. No.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I work at 3467 Ocean View, which is the corner building, and I too have gotten a ton of tickets. I certainly support the residents wanting to park there. I have to say that parking for the businesses is abominable. We're a small landscape architecture firm. There's 6 people in the firm. The Microtech Plaza, the lease comes with 3 parking spaces, so there are 3 of us who are parking, and I think they've got this wrong in the background, because between the alley and Ocean View, there are only 6 parking spaces for employees, me, during the day. 2 of those spaces are always taken up by Telzone vans. Telzone is about halfway down Ocean View. If I don't get there before 7:30, there is no parking. And 2-hour parking, I don't know about your job, for me to go and work for 2 hours and come back out, that's not how I work. If that block was 4 hours, which is what has happened further down on Ocean View, they've changed the 2-hour limit to 4 hours, means I could work in the morning, go to lunch, repark my car. That's perfectly fine. But right now, I can't, every 2 hours, I can't come back to that block and park, supposedly, because you're supposed to change your block if you're 2 hours. So whatever the consequences are for the residents, I strongly support their ability to park by their house, but parking along Sunview is horrendous for the employees. And there are 6 businesses in that corner little office building, and I know all of us who don't have parking spaces in the lot face this problem and get ticketed all the time. The 2 construction projects going on have made it particularly egregious recently, because all the construction workers are parking their trucks all over the streets, so there's nothing. And the gentleman who was here, yes, I do cut through around and go down Broadview to get to work because of the light at Verdugo. And there is a big, generous curve, and nobody slows down. He's absolutely right.
The light, you mean it's too long? The cycle is too long?
It's long, and things back up at it. And so if you're coming from the freeway, you're coming down Verdugo, you look ahead and you see that your light is red and it's going to be a long sequence. You make a left at the gas station, cut down to Broadview, then cut back over to Ocean View. So that's how you avoid the light. He's absolutely right.
Thank you.
But as you consider this, please consider the parking and make it 4 hours instead of 2 hours. It's really hard.
We have a commissioner who has a question.
Quickly, where's the light located, the traffic light located on Verdugo and Broadway? Broadview?
Yeah, it's just before the entrance to Honolulu. It's not on this
Verdugo and
map.
Broadview.
Verdugo and Broadway.
Yeah, I was just adding my 2 cents on that other commenter.
Do we control that light,
Yes.
Mr. Jano? Not Caltrans, right?
No, it's our light.
But please consider making that a 4-hour turnover for the businesses, because it's not, we don't have clients typically coming to the businesses, it's just employees. And all the businesses along Ocean View have the same problem.
That's why this commission wants to look at the EIRs. Thank you. Next speaker is Martin Layton.
Good evening. I'm Martin Layton, and I live at the 3500 building on Downing Avenue across from Jan Reedy at 3470. You guys have a really big issue here. I've been trying to get something done for 20 years that I've lived in this house about the parking on Sunview. There is no parking during the day there. Everybody parks from the businesses like this lady here. And, I struggled when my daughter was an infant, getting her in and out of the car. And now I'm struggling because my mom is handicapped, a 90-year-old woman. The only way she can get into my house is from Ocean View. My front door faces Downing. I park on Downing with one of my vehicles, one in my garage. But the main big issue is you have no parking there for the businesses. And the way I look at it, after the alley on Sunview, it's a neighborhood where we should not be dealing with parking problems. Now, I'm not even sure that what you guys are proposing is the answer, because now I know if you take care of the parking on Sunview, then there's going to be parking problems on Downing, which I'm concerned about. Also, there's a building being renovated at the corner of Ocean View and Sunview. I was here last month at the city council meeting. And the gentleman there has been trying to hoodwink the city in his building design, saying that he was just going to repair a roof, and the city sent me an email assuring me that he had no change of venue or whatever it is called, that it would still be whatever a laundromat would be. Well, I met the man a couple weeks ago, and he told me, no, it's an office building, and I'll get that permit when I'm done building. Since then, the city has pulled his permits. He's not building. I don't know what's going to happen. He's finally probably going to have to go through the design review process that he should have, and we should have been notified, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't really know what the answer is. I think it should be permit parking only on Sunview and Downing. I don't think that I'm sorry for this woman's problems, but I don't see how the neighborhood should be affected negatively by the commercial district that we border. So that's what I would suggest. I would suggest permit-only parking on Sunview and Downing where the neighborhood is.
So you want to expand preferential parking?
Yeah, because now that I'm looking at this, unfortunately, I didn't read this till I walked in here tonight. And I know that if you take care of this block here, then Downing is going to be impacted, and all the neighbors there are going to be impacted, not just me and not just Jan. I know that you have in the past looked for a parking lot in this area. Matter of fact, the building I was talking about, I know you guys looked into several years ago. But there's some environmental impact to that building, being a laundromat, that I'm not sure the city has found has been cleaned up or not cleaned up. I can't comment on that. I don't know what the deal is with that. So you have a huge issue here. I mean, I really think it should be permit parking only on Sunview and Downing, all the way up Downing, all the way down Sunview from where the alley starts.
And during the business hours, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.?
I think it has to be permit parking, otherwise it'll be the same problem. You know, this woman says she'd like 4-hour parking, okay, so she's going to come there at 8 o'clock in the morning, park there, leave. Somebody else is going to come there at 1 o'clock, park there till 5, then leave. There'll be no parking for the residents. Just see if I covered everything I wanted to say. You know, I'm a little frustrated because, as I say, I've been calling for 20 years. I was the one that, has called the city and called the meter maids, and unfortunately I didn't realize that Jan didn't have the proper parking placards, and, there's no way that she should be liable for these tickets for parking in front of her own house. I hope somebody can deal with that and reimburse her, because that's just crazy. And like I say, since my daughter was an infant, I tried to get somebody to come up there. I've had meter maids tell me that, well, we can come up there and mark the cars, but I don't know if we can come back and actually give them a ticket. So you guys have a lot of problems. You don't have enough people helping in this kind of problem, and these people have no place to park. I'm not sure exactly where you've worked in the landscape, right? There's a place where at the corner that was one office at one point, and now it's several offices, and they're impacting the whole neighborhood with cars everywhere. They only have so many cars, and it's 3501 Ocean View. So I don't know what the answer is. I think that there should be permit parking on Sunview and on Downing, and permit parking only. I'm afraid that if you just go ahead and do what is in this, then Downing's going to be impacted in a really negative way, and I'll be back here in a couple of months. So, we are the only residents in this little area here, but I know that it's going to start infecting everybody on Downing. So, I would prefer if it was preferential parking only. Like I said, Sunview and Downing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question?
To staff. I remember a couple of years ago we were making a decision on the a parking lot or an empty lot regarding the old Ford dealership. Was that on Ocean View or Honolulu?
On Honolulu. It's further to the 2600 block, and it's farther from here.
Farther from here?
We did purchase that for the basically Montrose Shopping Park businesses for them to park there, but they're not parking there. I mean, they're parking, some parking, but not that much. And so city is looking at working with the shopping park right now to look at options for that property.
And regarding Ocean View, that particular block, are they mostly businesses or apartment
everything
complex?
on Ocean View is all a combination of office, some retail, small restaurants.
No apartments?
Well, no apartments as far as I know. But one thing I wanted to point it out, that Downey already is preferential parking. That's in your packet. So the residents along Downey, including the 2 residents that are concerned about parking on Sunview, they are entitled to get permit parking to park on Downey right now. It's just the problem is on Sunview where they're looking to also park because their house is on the corner. Basically, we left that when we did the preferential parking on Downey, we kind of left that one block between the Sunview and the alley as a transition zone. So it's both for the residents and for the businesses. That's why we did not extend the preferential parking at that time to Sunview. But along the yellow where you see in your packet, it's on this exhibit, those residents on Downey already have preferential parking if they desire to have it. And then we put in the 2-hour parking limitation so that businesses still can park because there's a parking problem along Ocean View. At least they can park for 2 hours in the residential area. That's the way it's worked out. There is not enough off-street parking for all the businesses. A lot of the buildings are old. We've met with the shopping park owners along Ocean View, and there's really not a parking lot or a lot that we can even purchase because it's very expensive, plus the sizes are not adequate, so that you can actually put in some kind of a off-street parking lot for the businesses. been a long standing issue in that area, but really we haven't been able to come up with a parking lot for the businesses so that they can park there.
Now, the B-line runs between the parking, the lot that we purchased a couple of years ago in this area. There is a link there, isn't there? It brings you to...
The B-line runs through the Honolulu and does go past the that parking lot. It's just for the residents is not convenient. For the businesses, they can park.
I'm thinking businesses only.
It is available. It's just a matter of convenience as to how far they're willing to walk or park their vehicle and then take the B-line and get to the place of business.
It's better than not being able to park at all.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for staff as well. I just want a clarification. My understanding is that the preferential parking district is just being expanded. It will be the exact same terms as currently exist on Downing that would be expanded to Sunview?
Yes. Well, this is a new area. Basically, between Downey and the alley becomes a new preferential parking area. It is already 2-hour parking. All we're doing is making it 2-hour parking except by permit. Along Downey, it is already 2-hour parking except by permit.
Okay, but the same terms would exist on both
exactly the
places.
same.
Okay.
But it's not part of the same region where you can just add and expand the preferential
And
parking.
in the future, if problems occur, we can expand it along Sunview. So when the commission takes action today on that portion of Sunview, if there's a shift of problem Sunview, basically west of Downey, and the residents on Sunview then desire to have preferential parking, we can go in and convert that administratively without coming back to the commission.
Okay.
Can I just ask one other question? I'm a little unclear. So is it, if this is passed, will Jan and I be able to park either on Sunview or Downing?
That's correct. You can park right now on Downey. You have, and we are entitled to the permits on Downey.
Right. We have the permits.
Okay, then you have the permits. It's just because you want to park on Sunview and you can't, this will allow you to do so.
Okay. Well, I'm just to reiterate, this is not going to solve the problem at all. There'll still be cars on Sunview and Downing, and it's getting worse and worse. So, you guys are going to have to find a parking lot someplace for these businesses.
Well, as an interim solution, that's the only solution that I can see, to tell you the truth. If you want to be able to park in front of your house, preferential parking is the solution at this point. Otherwise, but I do agree with you that it's hopefully temporary until the funding is available and the real estate is available for the parking lot.
Well, it's going to have to be enforced also.
That goes with every issue in the city, speeding, parking, everything has to be enforced, otherwise you're going to violate it.
But it has not been enforced in the 20 years that I've lived on that corner. It's not the 2-hour parking. Up until, I finally called Councilman Draymond 3 months ago and got a hold of some people in the city government. It never was brought to anybody's attention. I'd call the police, they'd send somebody up, they'd say they sent somebody up, but they wouldn't, things like that, so.
Okay, we'll look into that. We'll transfer that. Thank you. Any questions, comments, commissioners? If not, I would like to vote on this item. And we're looking at 5A, which is approving preferential parking, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Saturday.
I move 5A1.
Have a second?
I second it.
Thank you. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you. Thank you for coming and thank you for your comments. Next item, please.
Item 5B, Director of Public Works regarding reports regarding installation of speed humps on Olmsted Drive between Pacific Avenue and Virginia Avenue. 5B1, motion to recommend that the City Council approve the installation of 5 speed humps on Olmsted Drive between Pacific Avenue and Virginia Avenue.
Thank you. Mr. Bagdanian?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Transportation and Parking Commission, we have 2 traffic calming issues that you will be acting on tonight. I would like to have Larry Tay, Traffic Engineering Associate, who prepared the staff report, did the analysis, to make the presentation, and then we'll be happy to respond questions. One thing I want to bring up to your attention is that these traffic calming issues, we're seeking Commission's recommendation to the City Council, because the way the ordinance is written, that Commission recommends installation of traffic calming measures that meets our traffic calming guidelines to the City Council for approval. Once we take these items to the City Council and the Council approves it, then we will go ahead and make the installation. In the past, we had some action that was taken by the Commission that we actually went ahead after the Commission action. After further review of the resolution that Council approved, it was determined by City Attorney that you don't have the authority for the traffic calming, it has to go to the Council. We will be bringing this to the City Council's attention, and if the Council decide that you will approve the traffic calming measures, then we can avoid one more step going to Council. If the Council desires to still have the Commission to have an advisory role, and Council has the approval, then we will do it that way. So just wanted to clarify that up front. So if you allow me, I'll have Larry make you present the traffic calming on speed humps on Olmsted Drive.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Traffic and Transportation and Parking Commission, as Mr. Bagdanian mentioned, staff is respectfully recommending or requesting that the Traffic and Parking Commission recommend to the City Council the approval of the installation of speed humps on Olmsted Drive between Virginia and Pacific Avenues. This request really started when a number of residents had contacted our offices expressing their concern over, among other things, high travel speeds in the area. It is in the proximity of Hoover High School. And in accordance with the city's adopted neighborhood traffic calming guidelines and in response to their concerns, staff has conducted a preliminary traffic study, the results of which I'll present to you in just a moment, and also the results of which indicate that this street is eligible for the installation of traffic calming features, including speed humps, under the city's existing guidelines. This here is just a vicinity map. You'll see Hoover High School in the center of the screen. The street immediately to the north, that is Olmsted Drive, and between the project limits is between Virginia Avenue to the west and Pacific Avenue to the east. For the record, I'd like to point out that the original request it was for traffic calming only between School Street, which is right here where my mouse arrow is pointed, and Pacific Avenue. However, upon staff's evaluation, we had determined that traffic calming measures, if they were to be installed on Olmsted Drive, would be far more effective if the project limits were extended to include Virginia Avenue and Pacific Avenue, and our study was conducted with that in mind. The reason being that there are control points. There is multi-way stop control at Virginia Avenue, multi-way stop control at Pacific Avenue, and as a general rule of thumb, you don't want to introduce traffic calming features in the middle of a segment without first having a control point that makes the drivers more aware and more likely to see changes in roadway conditions. Let me go through the criteria that we apply. We get many requests for traffic calming every year, from little local streets to even, believe it or not, Brand Boulevard. So we have certain criteria in order to identify which streets are good candidates, which streets are not. And some of the things we look at are functional classification, traffic data such as speed and volume, the functional purpose of the roadway. Is it used by transit vehicles, heavy trucks, or fire vehicles? I'm going to go through them one by one. And as I said before, this street is eligible for traffic calming, and it satisfies every single one of the adopted guidelines. Number one, the street must have one travel lane per direction and no more. This condition is satisfied on Olmsted Drive. The street must be in a residential district. That is the purpose of a neighborhood traffic calming program, to reduce speeds and cut through traffic in residential areas and rather than commercial areas. This criteria is satisfied. And criteria 3 is street classification. We do not install speed humps on large streets like minor arterials, major arterials such as Brand Boulevard, Pacific Avenue. This criteria was introduced to prevent that from happening. And as you can see, it is a local street, and therefore the criteria is satisfied. And as a general rule of thumb, many agencies, including ours, do not install speed humps or vertical deflection devices on facilities where the posted speed limit exceeds 25 miles per hour. There are a number of reasons for that, many of which are beyond the scope of this arena, so I'm going to skip that. But the criteria is satisfied. And one of the most important criteria that we look at is the 85th percentile speed on the facility. And the 85th percentile speed is the speed at which 85% of the vehicles are traveling at or below. When you install speed humps, generally speaking, the resultant speed between the humps is about 25 to 27 miles per hour. And what you want to do is make sure that the existing conditions are such that the installation of speed humps would be a benefit, and that's why we have a 30-mile-per-hour criteria there. As you can see, the prevailing condition on Olmsted Drive is an 85th percentile speed of 34 miles per hour, and therefore the installation of traffic calming features such as speed humps would be of substantial benefit in reducing traffic speeds, and therefore the criteria is satisfied. Average daily traffic volume needs to be between 1 and 10,000 vehicles, and as you can see, a traffic count conducted recently indicates about 1,700 vehicles daily travel on Olmsted Drive, which is between the upper and lower bounds that are prescribed, and therefore this criteria is also satisfied. Olmsted Drive is neither a truck route nor a transit route. The installation of speed humps or traffic calming features would not impede B-line buses, MTA buses, and therefore this criteria is satisfied. It is not considered a primary emergency response route, and staff has consulted with the Glendale Fire Department for their input, and they have indicated that they have no objections to the installation of speed humps on the subject roadway segment, and that doing so would not affect their response times. So therefore, this criteria is satisfied. It meets the street width criteria. It is less than 40 feet. And one of the most important things and one of the hallmarks of the traffic calming program is resident participation. And in addition to satisfying a lot of traffic-related criteria, it is also important that the residents themselves are given the opportunity to voice their input. And in this case, 83% of the residents of the affected block have signed the petition in favor of the traffic calming features, which is installation of 5 speed humps on Olmsted between Virginia and Pacific Avenues. As shown in this exhibit, these would be the locations of the 5 speed humps. And because it is in staff's judgment, the benefits of installing the speed humps far outweighs any drawbacks, and because it satisfied all the criteria and has demonstrated adequate support, we are respectfully requesting that the TPC recommend to the City Council the installation of these 5 speed humps as shown on the attached, or as shown on Exhibit A.
Thank you. We get the lights, please. Questions to staff?
Are they speed humps or lumps?
Commissioner Salayan, yes, they are proposed to be speed humps. 12 feet long, continuously across from gutter to gutter.
Okay. When it came to traffic count, how many days was that counted for?
We had counted 2 days, not consecutive, and probably about 6 months apart. But both counts came back very similar, about 16 to 1,700 vehicles per day, and about 32 to 34 miles per hour at the 85th percentile speed.
What was the highest speed that you recorded?
The high 85th percentile speed was 34 miles per hour.
No, the highest speed, not the...
The highest speed?
Yes.
I would have to check the records, but I believe there were a couple that were above 45 miles per hour. What exactly the speeds were, I don't know, but there were a couple over 45.
On 25 miles, so...
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, I had a question for staff. I noticed the proposed humps are actually spaced fairly far apart. Do you have an anticipation of roughly how much the average speed would be lowered post-installation?
as I mentioned before, the expected resultant speed is about 25 to 27 miles per hour. These humps, as proposed, are spaced probably anywhere from 200 to 400 feet apart, consistent with our guidelines, which are very similar to those of other agencies in the area.
Thank you. No further questions. I'd like action on this item. Speakers. Yes, I apologize. As a matter of fact, we have 6 speakers. First speaker is Ronald Daniel. I was thinking of his birthday.
I come in last and I get to speak first. The only reason I'm speaking is because I know my friend, my neighbor there, I want to have a problem with him. We lived across the street from each other now for 35 years and never come to battle yet. But you guys have put a speed bump right in the middle of his driveway. And Vern's going to have a fit over that, I know. That also puts it in my driveway. And I don't care if you dig a pit and put it across that street. You've got to slow those people down. If they were only going 34 miles an hour, I wouldn't care. But I go out at night, and I can tell you they come by there 60 and 65 miles an hour between Pacific and Virginia. Something has to be done to stop them. They come around the corner there, if you notice, School Street. I don't know how fast they go around the corner, but they've taken out the neighbors at 544 here. They've taken out their brick wall twice. They've ended up in the middle of their shrubbery a few times. If there was some way to stop them without speed humps, I'd be very glad to do it. My son said, put a stop sign in, and I said, oh, that's funny. The stop sign wouldn't do any good unless you put a policeman there on a motorcycle 24/7. I mean, these guys do not pay any attention to the welfare of that neighborhood. They just roar through there. It's the Olmsted Speedway, and I'm asking you, go ahead with the recommendation and plead with the city council to put those speed humps in. Thank you.
Thank you. The 2 comments, speed humps are never installed at driveways, so I'm sure that's not going to happen. They could be within proximity of the driveway.
There's going to be some finagling.
Yeah, but not dead center or within the driveway. That's number one. Number two, I drove the street. It's a long stretch. First thing that came to mind, it's a good place to test drive a sports car. You're absolutely right. And hopefully we can get them installed. Next speaker is William Warner.
My name is William Warner, and I reside at 561 Olmsted. And I believe that this is a solution that is long overdue. The speeding on this street, and it's not, in my opinion, not because it's close to that school, because it happens late into the night. And the 34 miles an hour, I don't know where that came from. It has to be closer to 74 miles an hour. The speeding up there it's just unbelievable. Also, there's been times where I've yelled at the people to slow down. They've turned their cars around and tried to run me over in the street. In the past 3 or 4 months, I know there's been numerous reports filed with the police department in regards to this sort of thing. My wife spoke to the police department, and they said it's common for them to turn their cars and try to run you over if you confront these people speeding. That he said they called her at work and to follow up in this, and said you would be surprised how common this is. So it's a chronic problem that this, I think, is a long overdue solution. And I would like to, I think this is the gentleman here that took the petition around, and I would like to thank him personally for doing that, because I think he started on that in October of 2005, that this is first started. I've lived there almost 8 years. In the 8 years I've lived there, the resident at 544, I've seen 3 cars go into that house, turning that corner on the school street. I've also, turning west onto Olmsted off of Pacific, I've seen the gate taken out at 1407 on the corner. I've seen that happen twice. So this is a big problem, and I hope that you guys can correct it for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for the record, just to the public out there, the 34 miles per hour is the 85th percentile. It's not, it's the average speed.
It's just, I just want
Right.
it's just...
It seems faster. Thank you. Next speaker, Vernon Dandridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Vernon Dandridge. I live at 541 Olmsted, across the street from Ron Daniel. There was a time when the major problems, by the way, I've lived in the house since 1970. There was a time when the major problems predominantly was in the morning and the afternoon when the kids were getting out of school. In the last several years, the problems have continued with speed, all hours of the night, as the previous speakers have spoken. And I don't think he was being at all incorrect when he stated 74 miles an hour or more by a great many of the speeders. I was in law enforcement for over 30 years. I made my living at times giving tickets, and I can estimate speed pretty good, maybe not as good as I used to, but I would say that probably every day, and not trying to count, but I could figure at least 40 cars a day doing in excess of 60 miles an hour. And at that time, there was a lot of little kids on the street. The one question that I had about the response time of the fire department has been answered. Thank you very much. The other question that I have is, could not these be augmented with a few more stop signs also? I originally was not in favor of speed bumps, predominantly from the response time for emergency vehicles being one of the main concerns. However, I have seen that they are somewhat effective on the other streets in the surrounding area. And I would like to just bring up that I think three-way stops at Hillcrest and Ardmore would also be would be a good idea, and a two-way stop at School Street. School Street is one way going southbound, so there would not be a necessary of one coming up, obviously. But I have watched cars go into the houses you've talked about, and at 1407, where he mentioned the gates being taken out, those are friends of ours that live there. And so I think that whatever you can do would be a great benefit. But I also think stop signs would be somewhat of a deterrent, whatever can be done. And I probably, if someone were to look at it and to go further west on Olmsted, beyond Virginia Avenue, I think speed humps would probably be appreciated by those people there too, because sometimes they stop at Virginia, sometimes they don't. In the evening, I have seen them go all the way from Pacific to where Olmsted comes to a dead end at Grandview, and without stopping anywhere, and there's about 5 stop signs in there. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. Thank you. Have we had any stop sign studies at any of these intersections in the past?
No, the one we have is at Virginia and Olmsted. And then Pacific, which is only on Olmsted, is not a 4-way stop.
1,600 vehicles on Olmsted, that's definitely will qualify Olmsted, but I'm not sure on the side streets.
Side streets does not qualify.
They don't bring in.
How about, I'm just curious, the School Street, since the...
School Street
where the 544, where that dwelling is, they've been telling us, folks out there, they've been telling us the gate, and they've been hitting the gates and the wall. Is that, if we put a stop sign right there, would that be warranted?
I don't think it will be warranted, primarily because School Street is a one-way southbound. It doesn't, it's a one-way street going south. I think what we'll look into is that corner to see what we can do to help that residents at 544. Again, some of that has to do with the high school traffic, the students who are driving excessively, so I would not be surprised that that's probably one of the main factor in turning too fast in that corner.
Because there's no visibility problems either.
Right.
If you're on...
So, it is a one-way street southbound, so we believe that the speed humps should have a major impact on the speeds on Olmsted.
It's the first step. Thank you. Next speaker, Cliff Hay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I live at 553 Olmsted, and I look directly down School Street, and I think everybody is very nice on their numbers. I've seen 7 incidences there. 3 of them have ended up on the lawn at 544 or through their wall. The others maybe just hit the curb and knock a wheel underneath, and a tow truck comes and gets them. What happens there is they are coming north, I guess east down Olmsted, and the trick is to go around that corner so fast that you slide through that corner. And my wife and I, at least once a night, run to the front window to see if somebody hit the house or hit the curb or whatever. It is just, it's unbelievable. And the percentile that you're talking about, I don't think you can get 15% of the people going as slow as 34 miles an hour. I really don't believe that's right. The stop sign at Virginia is absolutely useless. I go out every morning and I come in every night, and it's amazing how many people don't stop at that. Nor do they stop at the other ones farther down Olmsted, but that's enough of that. I also think that if this is going to be effective, you need to consider putting a speed bump or something just a little bit down School Street, so when they come around that corner, doing the slide around the corner, there's another speed bump there, something that's going to slow them down, because they'll leave that speed bump more or less in front of your house, Bill, and they'll just take off and they hit that corner and they do their slide. I wish I had brought some of the pictures that I have of that area and the crashes, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that happens now, that the police have now got on to the young kids that used to gather on School Street every evening, whether it's drug activity or whatever you want to call it. It's now more or less across the street from Bill's My House on Olmsted. Between the 561 and 533, they seem to meet there every night, and there's some activities going on there. You might want to look into that. There's something going on almost every night. I'm not really in favor of the stop signs, only because I see what happens coming off of Virginia, and I see what happens coming off of Pacific. It's if you got a 4-speed, you're in 3rd gear by the time you go by my house, and you're doing 70 or 80 miles an hour. If you've got a new Beamer, I guarantee you're doing 80 or 90 by my house. I saw that just 2 weekends ago. Somebody came around the corner at Pacific, and you heard rubber peel, and man, they went flying by the house. So this is going to help. This is going to be a start, but I think also maybe a little police action wouldn't hurt there also. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you're absolutely correct. One comment that I want to make, the stop signs, if unwarranted, they will not be respected and they will not do the job. I keep saying this at other meetings too. I live on Mountain. There was a traffic calming study done, and there were stop signs, unwarranted stop signs installed by council directives on Mountain Avenue. The speed humps are the ones doing the job. The stop signs they blow the stop signs day in, day out, almost 24 hours a day. And your approach is absolutely correct.
What I've seen them do is they come up to the stop sign.
Yes, please. Yeah.
They come up to the stop sign and they stop, and then it's floor it, and they just take off. It's another reason to show how they can accelerate from 0 to 60 in the fewest number of feet possible.
In this case, it's a little different because you do have the young crowd there, and you have the high school kids, and it's a game. They play a game.
I can't tell you how many times we've seen kids start across that street who've almost been hit. It's unbelievable.
I believe Commissioner Solian, you have a question.
No, I was going to ask
To
the question.
staff. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Okay, that's quickly.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Just in case we don't, the stop sign won't work and because it's not warranted, is it any way possible that we can expand the curve? I'm talking about the School Street and Olmsted in such a way that if a car comes east, we'll not be able to just burn rubber and make a right on School Street going south, or some kind of a dip right on Olmsted and School Street?
Well, I was talking with Larry Tay, was we can look into possibly, again, we've been able to fit 5 speed humps. We'll look into possibly add one more and move that one at 6...
At 601, closer to
601.
Hillcrest.
Yeah, bring it to Hillcrest
Another
and
one at
add
School
one
Street.
in
Okay.
advance of South Street so that we
Both
can
help.
slow down. Before they turn, they really have to slow down before they turn into South Street. Or we'll look into that corner and see what else can be done.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one more speaker on this item, Deborah Burchett.
Hello, thank you. I'm a parent whose children go to Hoover. I've lived in the area for 16 years, and Olmsted has been continuously a scary place for your kids if they walk to school or they get dropped off to cross that street. Especially in the morning when you're traveling eastbound, the sun is in your eyes, you're speeding, you do not see a child crossing that street at all. There is a very minimal crosswalk at Hillcrest that crosses Olmsted, right? It's very faded. Nobody looks at it. Nobody could care less about it. I would definitely suggest that that crosswalk be more prominent, maybe have the flashing light things. I know it's not very nice for a neighborhood. I probably wouldn't want that in front of my house either. But somehow maybe striping that crosswalk again so it's much more prominent on both sides. And I think there's only a crossing sign on one side, not the other, if I'm not sure. But I've seen so many kids practically get creamed a million times because people are just speeding. The thing about School Street, and I'm actually surprised that nobody from Hoover is here because I'm on the PTA and it's part of also the Hoover Leadership Council, and we've talked about this many times, hoping and wishing that the city would calm this street. What happens now is that there's so much construction going on at Hoover that the traffic is being diverted to School Street. That's really the only way you can get into the school now. So I don't know when you did the survey, but now you're going to have many more than 1,600 cars coming by there because you can't go on Glenwood to get to the school. You can't go to the front of the school off of Glenwood. You have to go around Olmsted down to school to get into a little side gate. So school is also very dangerous right now. The speed bump idea, I'm very, very happy to see that. I know that many of the parents at the school are very happy to see that. The thing about it is that the four-way stop at Virginia does stop a lot of people, but you have that street is one way going this way, but it's two-way on the top end. So you get the two-way speeding off on Olmsted because you can't go down Virginia there. The only way you can go is down School Street. So you're still, the way the one-way works, it's diverting even more traffic onto Olmsted indirectly. So I'm a little concerned, though, that the speed bumps will then create more traffic on Kenneth. I'm not sure how you study that, where people dropping their kids off of school to and from. I also wanted just to say that the construction is going to be going on for many, many years now. So this whole situation with School Street is a problem. That corner that you're talking about is the baseball field. And there is a gate right there on the top right-hand corner where it says School Street and Olmsted Drive. So there is a little space, probably. I don't know in terms of the school property versus the city property, how you can work that out. And I also wanted to
I'll give you one more minute.
say thank you to Larry Tay. I must say, who's an incredible staff person who immediately answered all of my questions, and so I appreciate that very much.
Thank you. I think I've heard enough from other speakers, and the presentation was a really good presentation. Thank you. So if we're ready to take action on it.
I'll be gladly to move 5B1, but I'd like to make a comment. I was there last night around 7:10, and I noticed exactly what these folks are telling us. The speed is unbelievable, and it was on weekend. I could clock in approximately around 50 to 55 miles per hour. It's a wider street than most, it's pretty wide, Olmsted. Even with 2 cars parked, it's still pretty wide. So I'll be gladly to move 5B1, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes.
If you could give the staff the discretion to add a hump, if we can fit it in at that location. So it's on this exhibit, you're showing 5, your motion will...
Right.
I just want to make sure that if we can fit one in...
Yes.
We can engineer it in and deal with that. That would be desirable, so I think it will help that corner.
That's our recommendation. As a matter of fact, I engineered it in, and I'll give you a copy of it.
It's okay. No, verbally. I think, Mr. Sansoni, do I need to modify my motion, Mr. Sansoni?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, Commissioner Sline, you may modify your motion, and you're going to add 6 speed humps
Instead of 5.
instead of 5?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would say if we can give it 5 or 6, so we can...
Okay.
5 to 6
Yeah.
feet.
5 or 6.
Before we take it to City Council, we will finalize it.
It's okay. I'd like
To be finalized by, how would you like to
staff?
write that?
By staff.
To be finalized by staff.
So do I need to reintroduce?
Yes, please.
Okay, then, I move 5B1 with a modification, adding 5 or 6 speed humps with staff. Now, how would you say that?
To be finalized.
To be finalized by staff.
Right.
And I will second the amended motion.
Thank you. Roll, please.
Commissioner Salayan?
Yes.
Commissioner Welch?
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman?
Yes.
Chairperson Sahakian?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for coming. And again, it's a recommendation only to council. So I do encourage you to go to the council meeting when this item is on their agenda for approval. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item
Chairman,
5C.
if I may,
Yes.
just for, we will, it takes us about 3 weeks at least to schedule an item on the city council, so we will notify you ahead of time when this item, I would say somewhere about 4 to 5 weeks, because depending on what's on the council agenda, we have to request it at city manager's office, puts it on the agenda, and then if there are no other critical issues at the same day, they will accommodate us, so.
Okay.
We will notify the residents in advance.
Thank you. Item 5C, please.
Item 5C, regarding installation of prefabricated speed cushions on Vine Street between Columbus and Central Avenue. 5C1, motion concurring with the Director of Public Works regarding installation of 2 rows of speed cushions on Vine Street between Columbus Avenue and Central Avenue.
Thank you. Mr. Bagdanian.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to turn over to Larry Tay again to make a brief presentation on this item.
Thank you, Jono. Mr. Chairperson, members of the Commission, I'd like to discuss the motion to recommend that the City Council approve, motion that the TPC recommend to the City Council to approve the installation of 2 rows of speed cushions on Vine Street between Columbus and Central Avenues. Similar to Olmsted Drive, this request was also conceived when we received a tremendous volume of residential input with concerns over travel speeds. And similar to the traffic study that was conducted, okay, let me go through the project area. This is the subject segment of Vine Street, bound by Central Avenue on the east and Columbus Avenue to the west. It's 2 blocks south of Colorado Street in the proximity of the Glendale Galleria. And staff had conducted a preliminary traffic study, the results of which are presented here. And as you can see, all of the implementation criteria have been satisfied, and this street is eligible for the installation of speed humps or speed cushions. And it is staff's belief that this street will benefit from the installation of traffic calming features. Let me discuss one matter. The original request was for speed humps, which are the traditional asphalt speed humps that we were talking about installing on Olmsted. Staff is proposing an alternative traffic calming measure on this facility, and these are prefabricated speed cushions. They differ in the humps as they're not continuous. Each hump is about 6 feet wide and 7 feet long, 3 inches high. So they have a very similar profile to the speed hump. And they are, from a traffic engineering perspective, they're equivalent. They're vertical deflection devices. They're self-reducing or self-enforcing speed-reducing devices that require vehicles to go over them, and they're in the same family as speed humps. The reason they were selected for use on Vine Street was that we've had some issues with consistency in the past, and the advantage of these humps is that they're easily installed and they're easily removed. They're removable. You have uniformity from one unit to the next as opposed to the asphalt humps. And because we're only proposing to install 2 rows of these things on Vine Street, and based on existing resources, we feel that Vine Street would be a good candidate to receive these traffic calming features as opposed to the speed humps. But they are, from a traffic engineering perspective, equivalent. They're expected to do the same thing, reduce speeds to 25 to 27 miles per hour between the humps. And because this street has satisfied all the implementation criteria, and because staff believes that these installations will positively impact traffic flow, staff is respectfully requesting that the Transportation and Parking Commission recommend to the City Council the approval of these devices as shown on Exhibit A.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I can ask, I don't understand, when you say issues with consistency, what does that mean exactly?
In the past, when we have constructed asphalt lumps, they're poured asphalt and someone has to groom it, and it's very hard to, not very hard, but sometimes it's you run into issues with getting the exact profile along the hump. And Commissioner Salayan might be able to attest that sometimes it is rather difficult to achieve a 3-inch height uniformity from one lump to the next. Well, with these prefabricated devices, you don't have those sorts of challenges.
Okay. I thought you meant consistency with data or something.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Apologize for not being more clear.
Now, having said that, I recently looked at some studies and looked at some pictures where these humps were all over the streets after a 3-year period. So I'm not sure what brand you're using, but we've had some issues with them. But it's a test program, so I recommend that, you definitely try it. Most of the streets that I looked at, it was high speed, very high speed. It's different if you hit the prefabricated, because they're rubber basically, at 35 mile per hour or at 40, 50 mile per hour. The speeds where they had the higher threshold at 50, 55 mile per hour, the lifetime was 3 years old. 3 years, so it's something for you guys to look at. Now, with that, I do have 2 speaker cards for this item. The first speaker, Mr. Vartan Jangosian.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commission members. My name is Vartan Jangosian. I live in this street almost 24 years, and my address is 355 Vine Street. We've been really waiting very long for this action. We support that action, especially like 3 years ago when that Edison School was open after long construction. this street become a lot of, we get a lot of traffic, and especially a lot of people speeding. It's almost same situation, previous project which you talk. A lot of people drive like 60 mile, 50 mile. I don't think they drive less than 40 mile. And especially right now, we have a lot of parents with the children early morning time and around noon. It's become very dangerous, and speeding guys, especially motorcycle guys, are speeding all the time. And I believe this is going to be very helpful for the street. And well, almost everybody in that street is supporting this project, because me and my neighbor Mike, we provide the petition for this project, and we're hoping to get approval for this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question. Next speaker is Mike Amusen.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and commission members and city staff. Vartan and I are neighbors, and I'll be very brief.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike Amison. I live at 357 Vine Street. I've been a resident of that part of Glendale for 46 years. I've been in the house that I'm in now for about 22 years. We have seen quite an increase in the speed of the general traffic flow of that neighborhood. My concern, I've talked to Larry quite a bit, and he's been very helpful, is the fact that there are a couple of schools in the area and that the traffic is steadily speeding up. And actually, Vartan and I had been standing out in our front yards talking on a Saturday morning and just watched car after car after car, blow through the stop signs. I'm whistling down the street. You can see that the average speed, I think, was 30 miles an hour. So that's the average speed. That's not, the peak speed of some of the cars that travel up and down that street. There are a couple of car repair facilities down towards the Central Avenue, and they do use that street to test their cars after they've been worked on. And, maybe that's part of the issue. I'm not going to blame them, but I am going to say that we do have a speed issue on that street. There have been accidents on that street. There's been trees hit, there's been cars hit, there's been cars end up on the sidewalk. Speed is an issue. It's a very narrow street. I believe that the street is only 30 feet wide. It's very difficult to get two cars passing each other with cars parked on both sides of the street. You've got to kind of dive into a driveway apron area to let another car go by. When cars are traveling at 30 miles an hour, it's pretty scary. So I hope that you guys would approve this. I hope that the city council will approve it. I have one question, and that's with the prefab speed bumps. Is there an issue with cars straddling the humps with their tires to bypass the speed hump? The humps themselves, or the cushions themselves, are 6 feet wide, which exceeds the track width of a typical SUV or passenger car. So normal passenger vehicles have to go over the humps, while emergency response vehicles with a wider track width will actually be able to go right through them.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. And to tell you the truth, in this case, where you build humps with asphalt and you taper off the edges, you don't get the impact when you're using these, because these will give you more of a jolt if you try to use the humps, and of course, the track width is larger, so you're going to hit the ends of each section to the left or to the right, so they're more effective in that sense.
They're better than asphalt.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if...
I have a question.
Yes,
quick question
to staff.
quickly. What happens after 3 years, the rubber gets degraded? How much, I'm just curious, how much does it cost first? Installing, are those cheaper than installing asphalt?
At this moment in time, I think the costs per unit is about comparable. These are a little bit cheaper per unit, but then there are installation costs that we have to deal with in addition to purchasing the prefab.
So what happens after 3 years when it gets degraded? Do we need to replace them?
Well, we can replace them, and the good thing about these are individual pods. You can replace one at a time rather than having to replace a whole row. And the other thing is that 85th percentile speed on this facility is 30 miles per hour. It's significantly less than the 50 miles per hour that Chairperson Sahakian noted that would result in degradation over a 3-year period. So we expect these to last a little bit longer, especially in light of the fact that this is a new product. It's a newer generation of these products, and material science and engineering we expect to be a little bit better.
Okay. They've had these for a while. They're improving them. Yes, Commissioner.
Question for staff. You say in your report that the speed cushions are easily removable, and hopefully that's just by city staff and not by vandals.
The installation and removal process requires very, very specific tools, without which it would be virtually impossible, if not very, very difficult to tamper with.
Okay, then I'd like to move 5C1 with no modification.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, he can second.
Thank you. Roll, please.
Commissioner Salayan?
Yes.
Commissioner Welch?
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman?
Yes.
Chairperson Sahakian?
Yes. And again, this is a recommendation to council. I encourage you to attend the council meeting when it's scheduled. With that, next item, please, item number 6.
Item 6, commission staff comments and updates.
I have a comment. We got to get John out of here immediately. So,
No, Mr. Chairman, we're okay.
are we?
Mr. Chair, would you like
Yeah.
to bring back the minutes? of last
Yes,
week?
yes, the minutes. We didn't do that. I'm glad you reminded me.
I changed my mind a little bit, but all I can say, there's a typo on page 4 out of page 4. First sentence, I think.
I don't even do the typos. If I'm going to do that, we'll be here for a while.
Just
but
you want to correct this. It says where it says Commissioner Salayan questioned the liability if there was, not the.
yeah, there's 3, 4 more like that,
Yeah.
but
Nothing big.
let's give an idea. The idea is there.
And I'll move.
Yes, to approve.
I move to approve the meetings of last month.
Okay, I second it.
Okay, so as amended with that one change, we need roll for the approval.
Yes.
You'd need a roll call for the approval. Commissioner Weissman was not present, so he'll need to abstain.
Okay,
Thank you.
the roll, please.
Commissioner Salayan?
Yes.
Commissioner Welch?
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman? Chairperson Sahakian?
Yes. Thank you. And last item, are we ready to adjourn?
Yes.
Move to adjourn.
You got it. Here are the speaker cards.